In project management, we face a common problem. The plan differs from reality. It leads to undesirable consequences, such as failure to deliver a project on time, financial loss, loss of customer and management trust, and many others. Why does it happen? The reasons may be different, but the most common among them are mistakes during the planning phase, uncoordinated teamwork, lack of information on the project progress. In Gantt Pro, we have thought through all the details to minimize these risks, both at the planning and implementation phases. At the planning phase, you save your time. Gantt Pro is an intuitive tool. In 10 minutes, you and your team will manage projects skillfully. Create a detailed and visual plan that answers what and when questions at any stage of your project. Minimize the risks of overdue tasks. Cut expenses by assigning resources like budget, time, and labor cost. You'll take into account all the constraints in advance. Planning is our strength, but we also made Gantt Pro an ideal tool to use at the implementation phase. At the implementation phase, you invite your team in the already created project and start working without any delay and confusion. Spend less time on meetings and discussions. Avoid overdue tasks and expectations. Everyone receives notifications about the workflow and gets other means for organized teamwork. Evenly distribute workload and avoid employees over-allocation. Get information on possible risks in advance and remove them timely. Have at-hand information on the project progress. Keep track of its high-level status and even project portfolios. Also, Gantt Pro gives a possibility to share your project with customers and clients at any stage, both for pre-sale and demonstration of the current state. Export reports to popular formats, keep documentation and communication around tasks in real time. With Gantt Pro, you always know when a project ends, how many resources are needed, who is working on what, and identify risks of overdue tasks at early stages. Plan with Gantt Pro, professionally and easily.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Lunch Project podcast. I am delighted to welcome Karanveer Anand to the show. He's the technical project manager and management leader at Google. He leads complex and cross-functional projects that involve the reliability and scalability and performance of Google's cloud infrastructure and services. So we've all used a bit of that somewhere along the line. He's a Master of Science in Computer Science from the University of Texas at Austin, and a certified professional in Cisco, Nutanix, and VMware technologies. He's also an advisory board member at the University of California, Irvine Division of Continuing Education, that's a mouthful, providing guidance and feedback on their curriculum and programs in the field of cloud computing. So Karanveer, welcome to the show. Really delighted to have you on. Tell us a bit more about you.
Thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm glad I became part of your podcast. Yeah.
That's
My
good.
name is
Looking forward to the
Karanveer.
conversation.
Yeah. My name is Karanveer. I'm a technical program manager. I'm basically from India and born and grew up in India for most of my career, for most of my life. And I moved to United States of America around 8 years back for my work. And yeah, I've studied computer science. My interest is in computer science. And over the time, I've realized I like management more. So I just found somewhere a sweet spot between the technical and a management. And I found it's called technical program management. So where I can have an impact across the different projects, across the organization. It's a pretty sweet spot for me where I can show my technical skills by understanding the projects and create an impact around those projects. So I enjoy doing technical program management from last few years. I'm currently working in Google. Before Google, I was working with Nutanix. There are also I was a people manager for SRE readiness team, which is pretty similar as a program management for a SRE. I guess that's all about a short intro about me as a
Interesting.
professional.
Yeah, I think that people using the Google and interest. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. I said I would, didn't I, straight away on the comment of technical project manager? Because I've always sat there and I look at the different things and I don't know what that means. I really don't. I'll see it as a say on a job advert or someone on someone's title, and I'll sit there and go, well, does that mean you're in there coding? Does that mean you're designing and doing architecting, or how is it? How do you see it different from just a project manager, technical project? And obviously, you get ones where people say business project managers or business change project managers. That's quite easy to understand the difference. What? How do you see the
Overall,
difference?
overall industry came up with different names for different flavors of a project management. These all are different flavors of a project management. Let's say
Yeah,
you want to have an ice cream. Someone says, "Oh, this is dairy-free ice cream. This is chocolate ice cream. This is vanilla ice cream. This is nuts-free ice cream." You have a different flavors of ice cream, right? And each country has their own flavor of ice cream too.
yeah,
Similarly, project management, each organization has their own flavor of project management. Each organization, even in a bigger company like Google, has a different divisions, Facebook has a different divisions, or Apple has a different divisions. They call it different divisions. Let's say Apple has an iPhone, they call it hardware project manager or supply chain project manager. So these names are different, but in the fundamentals, some of the core responsibilities are same on how you manage the projects, but type of project you manage differs by the title of your job. For example, I manage here technical program manager. So it means I'm expected to make some technical contribution to the projects and add technical value since I'm in the reliability domain to improve the reliability of product. So basically your roles and responsibilities get differ by 20% here and there based on the title of your job. But overall, the theme, the fundamental rocks are almost same. 50% or 60%, they're pretty much same across the all industry, across the similar. The similarities could be you're expected to manage the projects, you're expected to lead the communication, stakeholder alignment, leadership, like reporting, dashboard, reporting of your metrics, whatever your projects you are tracking, KPIs, what are your key performance indicators, success metrics. So some of those basic things remains the same across the whole different flavors. Like I can map this to analogy to ice cream. All ice creams will taste sweet. No matter if you're having a dairy-free, vanilla, chocolate, pistachio, they will all be sweet. But someone is made up of a chocolate, someone is made of vanilla, so differ, but all will be sweet.
I like that analogy. Actually, it's really good because, like you say, you've got that base thing. It's going to be in a cone. It's going to be, yeah, and you get those variations on it. But it's an interesting one because I think sometimes it's kind of if you're working in the IT industry, and I do as well. I kind of think of a lot of the roles that we do that you've got to understand, not necessarily deep understanding of the technology, but you've got to be able to ask the silly questions of your deep technical people and understand enough to say, that sounds wrong. How can we do that? And maybe it's from experience or whatever. But then I also kind of wonder whether sometimes you'll see, and one of the reasons that we spoke and you reached out to me is to talk about project management as a career and how people can ace their careers, as I think as the words ace your project management career. And I think from a point of view of looking at different roles and how you might go into those roles, it's quite interesting to look at it and think, well, I'm not technical, therefore would I not suit that role? Whereas actually, as what you're saying there is the underlying knowledge of project management is the 60-70% of the role. That technical element is the bit that is uh, just that little bit difference that we can learn extra stuff, can't we?
Yeah, so I guess there are a couple of answers to your first question. The careers in project management. First, let me double click on that. The careers in project management, there is no straightforward path. Here you do study this book, take this course, you will be a project manager. There is no straightforward thing. Everyone has their own journey, everyone has their own path to become a project manager. Someone become by organic growth, someone by inorganic, someone take degrees, someone take some certification. So everyone has their own path. So it's not like a pretty much software developer where you are expected to write a direct code. You just go to school and really study computer science, and then you can start writing code and join as a software developer in any organization. This is little different. So some people learn while doing the job. Someone starts an analyst and start learning how to manage the things, start doing project management. Someone takes some certifications outside. There are plenty of certifications in the market. Someone studying the course like engineering management, some colleges, schools are offering project management courses as well.
Yeah.
Someone taking a PMP certification. So everyone has their own journey. So that's why it's important to know anyone can become a project manager. I wanted to send this note to the global of people who will listen this podcast. If you have a will, you can become. You just need to make your own path.
It's interesting because one of the things I did originally, and it might be interesting to talk to you through this. I would used to talk about when I first started the podcast was more interviewing people's background and how they got into project management. And I asked about some of their projects that they were involved with and things like that, and how they got into project management. And quite a lot of the first interviews I've got are people who are similar age to me, and a bit older, some of them, who have been in project management since it wasn't called project management, before people even knew it was a real job. I know like PMI's been around 50 years, but generally there's a lot of people out there who are very experienced, very well-known project managers who didn't know they were a project manager on the first job that they were doing project management. So on that basis, what was your first project management role that you knew you were doing as a project manager?
For me, I didn't know that I'm doing a project manager until 6 months or a year. My title was pretty different, and I just started working. I enjoyed doing. Then over the time, I realized when I looked around, what the hell I'm doing. Then I realized, okay, this is called as project management or program management in the industry. So, okay, so I'm a now program manager. So I need to build on my strengths and skills. I need to see what I am missing to map to industry, flashy title of project or a program manager. Then I build over it. So I started as a support engineer in my career. Then from a support engineer by fixing the issues, then I moved internally to a team where we were improving the customer experience for those products, but not directly, but indirectly by seeing how many support tickets we get for this issue. We need to fix this and working cross-functionally with the engineering team, development team, and making the product better. Basically, it's a cross-functional work by working with support, core engineering, development team, and making the products better for our customer. So it's pretty much like a project management, but my title was not project management. I did this for a couple of years. I realized, oh, I'm a project manager now.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I can see that because it kind of that's another where I see quite a bit of crossover. Though some different is product management as well, because that kind of sounds a little bit like that product improvement kind of where you will own a product, not own it entirely, but you know what I mean. You're owning the improvement part of that product and making that product better. But again, there's similar sets of skills, isn't it? Looking at what you've got to do, prioritizing it, identifying resources, planning it, delivering it, and you might not have procurement, but then in all projects it varies which project we get, what we need to do. There's some people I know who've never had to do that procurement set of the project management because that's done by another department or they get delivered a project and say deliver that project for me. That's what you're using. You know what I mean? They don't get that product selection or anything like that. And then at the other end, you've got some people who do loads of product selection and there's not a lot of development. It's just implementation. It does vary depending on what you've got to do. And again, when you cross out of the IT industry and into the construction industry and into events and things like that, you get some very, again, lots of commonality, but a lot of varied things, don't you?
I agree. The things could be very. Then I realized what are the basic things I'm doing if I map to the industry. Like you said, I realized I'm doing a prioritization. I'm working cross-functional. That's part of my job. And I'm tracking the metrics, having a success KPI metric. I guess success metrics is pretty much same. If I go with event industry, construction industry, or any industry, you need to have some goals, OKRs, whatever you call, and have a success metrics for that. On what is your goal? What are you making the change? Why are you making the change? How are you going to track that change? Even can be event, can be constructing a building, can be making a product better or whatever. How can you track that metric? So some of the basic concepts remain the same, but the overall steps could vary. I agree. So in my journey, I retrospected it in my career and mapped it to the industry on which of the things are common in the industry and build my story around that. It's all about the storytelling of your career, of your past experience, and map it to the project management principles. For example, doing this podcast, we can say it's kind of project management as well. It's all about the storytelling. So we came up with the idea, we find a time slot, where do we need to have this podcast? We make sure the connections are fine, have a prerequisites, doing this, then after then we have summary and have a retrospective on how it went. So it's all about the storytelling.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got my checklist here, which everyone can see that. They can't read it. It's encrypted. For many, many, many months now, I've been using that same checklist. And actually, just as you joined tonight, I was typing it up. So I'm putting it on actually typing it onto a Word document so I can actually use it on the screen at the same time. But that's what we do, don't we? In many, many ways, as project managers. Some of what we do is checklists, and repeatable checklists that are really powerful because you can pick those up. And I heard a fantastic concept that and I'll look around. I don't know where it is, but there was a concept from a bunch of guys, a couple of guys called Mark Ozan and Mark Hortzman and Mike Ozan, who I talk about often on this show. They run a podcast called Manager Tools, and it's an incredibly good podcast. Been listening to it now, knocking on 20 years, I think, and I've listened to it for a good 14 years of those. And they talked about a playbook. And obviously coming from America, and they've got and I've listened to a little bit about American football. I didn't realise this, that at the beginning of an American football season, coaches would come out with a playbook that is that thick that everyone of the team has to learn that playbook. And those are the plays they're going to be calling, they're going to be using, and they're going to never really paid much attention to it. They're going to be using through the season, and that will be what they'll do. But many of those plays, and the concept of what I do with project management is a number of times where I sit there, say you're doing your finances. Okay, what are you looking at? How's our margin looking? What's the average cost? What's this? Why is that change? There are things you do automatically and you never think about. But then there are some things that you do once every 12 months or once every 2 or 3 projects, and it might be every 2 years. And if you have that playbook of when I've done this, this is what I've done, and then you can improve them as you go along, you end up with that own personal kit bag that you can pick up and go, that's what I'm going to use. And I find it really a really useful concept to think about that. Now, whether it's a Microsoft Word document, a notepad, a physical notepad, or whether it's something much more complicated, it really is a good way of, what's the word, getting the knowledge out of your brain into a system, isn't it?
I guess that's where the difference between the new project manager versus experienced project manager comes play. The proficient or the leader of a program or project management thinks, how can that person becomes invisible? We call it
Mm.
invisible project management. Like either build softwares, scripts, tools, checklists, templates, different names, playbooks, so that this thing can be sustainable and can be get done over a longer period of time without the involvement of a project manager. So that project manager can shift his focus from project A to project B while keeping the project A in the auto mode. Or if it can't be in auto mode, can it get be leveraged by a new project manager or a junior project manager? If you give
Yeah.
a checklist or a template to a junior project manager, can that person deliver it? Yes. Then why not put experienced project manager into a different complex project and get the results from there and let him or her make a checklist in that and move on. That's how the business runs. I guess that's very important what you put it. What is that time frame when you have to move from one project to another project? That's where the program management comes, right? I mean, how can you become invisible? How can you make yourself get out of the loop? Otherwise, it's always a cat herding problem. You keep
Yeah.
herding the cats. and keep on that loop. That's where we can scale our impact from project A to portfolio A. That's where the project versus portfolio management comes in. So it's always important to make these playbooks like you have, checklists or templates, and see, can we automate this? That's where the AI, the revolution of AI and all these things coming up. How can we automate this stuff? How can we get project manager out of the loop after a certain point and put the project manager in a more strategic and leadership position so that they can be a more efficient and have a more impact for the organization?
That's interesting because you mention AI there, and it's something I had in back of my head to talk to you about. Because obviously, with you working in Google, you're obviously one of the large organisations that are going to be leading on these sort of things. And in fact, only 2 or 3 days ago, I was using Gemini for. I do some photos on Shutterstock, and put them up and kind of you've got to put a description in and you've got to put tags in there and you've got to think what you're going to put in there. And I just kind of thought, I just loaded up the photo and said, please give me a 100-word description of this photo plus 50 tags so that I can put it into Shutterstock. And it's like bang, bang, bang. And it's come up with a fantastic description. It came up with a fantastic. I can see the benefit of these tools in producing better quality than what I would have done because I wouldn't have invested the time to do it. But also speeding up that process of me doing it. And then obviously when we get into our project management zone, I can see project status reports jumping out there, being able to pull something from a load of data and say, this is a summary of what I think the project looks like for you. And then you be able to tweak it to just correct for some of the, maybe some data points that aren't correct. How are you seeing that? And can we go behind the curtain of Google? And are you already starting to use the AI tooling within your project management deliveries and things like that? Or is that early stages like a lot of us?
Definitely, I guess the technology revolution comes at it's a graph. Everything in life is a graph. I have a very good thing. I keep analogy of the life. Similarly, stock market is a graph. It goes up, there's a pullback, it goes up again, like a sine curve. Similarly, technology has a graph too. We came up with that laptop, desktop. It was a great revolution. And then we came up with mobile phones. Then we came up with the cloud computing was the last biggest revolution of the era, where we came up AWS, GCP, Azure, all these are cloud services. The concept of cloud is now very mature in the industry. Now the recent technology advancement came up with this machine learning, AI ML, and it got boomed up with ChatGPT, yes, because the usability of AI has been explored by OpenAI.
Yeah.
The concepts were here before. It's nothing new. It's been here from a couple of years. A lot of companies are using already AI ML, but we all got to know recently because of the nice user interface developed by ChatGPT, where a common person can interact with the AI. So AI has an impact in all of the fields from healthcare, financial sector, technology sector to project management as well. I'm now digging deep into project management. So as per PMI report, PMI is a project management institute. Um, AI is gonna help in a lot of things, but will not replace project managers. There's a lot of uncertainty in the project management industry. Will AI replace the project manager? But it will make us more efficient.
It can change our jobs. That's what it does, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
it's the same with all technology. It changes the job you're doing, and in theory, it should remove some of the mundanity. Or is that a word? The mundane work that actually, if something can do it better and quicker, why are we doing it? Now we may sit there, and it's the same as technology transforming the industry and transforming contact centers and transforming all of other different industries. It made massive differences where you've got new technologies coming in. I think the thing that I'm excited about is the point you said there about leadership and strategy. And we spend a lot of time as project managers reporting risks and trying to manage them in our heads. Whereas actually, my view is that we could be more proactive in a lot of these activities, risk avoidance, things like that. And whereas it quite often you aren't doing that. You're doing a lot of the reporting of that stuff, not the managing of that stuff. And I don't know if you see the same. It's kind of the managing it has to be done, and it gets done, but it could be done with a lot more forethought.
I agree. I guess that at least the reporting part can be automated fully or has been already automated by a lot of organizations. Now reporting is getting easy, so reporting will get automated, but the challenge will come in the decision making where AI can't take a decision. And for example, I'm working in Google. If I have to write an email, the emails can be get Gemini, Gemini for Workspace. We have a product, Gemini for Workspace. It makes my email very look good, free of grammatical errors, fix it, and all that stuff. So basically, communication is a pillar of a project management job that got very easy after AI.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing that I mentioned not long ago. I put a post on LinkedIn probably 3 or 4 months ago, but someone was talking about communication. And I said, well, projects are about people. People deliver projects. So, and dealing with people is about communication. Now, whether that's communicating through your Gantt chart, through an email, through a conversation. So everything about project management is about communication. So if as a project manager, you don't look at communication, because a Gantt chart is a communication tool. Your weekly report is a communication tool. Your financial report is a like finances is seen as a big thing separately on its own. Actually, all finances are. All the finance reporting that we do, all the finance management, the main goal of all that is to provide a report to say how well you're doing in your business, which is communication. It's just another tool of communication. And everything about business, everything about delivery is communication
Communication.
all the way through. And that's what we've got to be brilliant at, as
I
to
guess
be the
you are
best.
hitting on the pillar. Even all the tracking metrics is a communication because what does the metrics provide you? They provide you action items with what is lagging, what is what is ahead, what is behind, and what are you gonna take? It's a communication to the stakeholders.
Yeah. And then they make decisions based on those communications and communicate those decisions. And quite often, I think people see that whole, oh, you've got to be a good communicator. And they don't realize that they think we've just got to do that. It's as a PM, we've got to learn that skill and learn that that is what we are about. We aren't about like I'm doing a Gantt chart at the moment to manage something on a complicated project in a minute. Lots of independencies trying to work it out, and it's quite time consuming. It's quite painful, but at the end of the day, I've been doing a lot of work. I can understand it, but I'm having to restructure it. I'm having to pull bits out of it in order so I can communicate to the person I'm giving it to, so they can onward communicate to the customer to explain when things are happening and why they're happening and why we can't do it quicker. As ever, everybody wants something quicker, don't they? But by being in that position, again, it's how do you use those tools to communicate? You can't send an 800-page plan to every one of your stakeholders. You've got to work out how you can improve that communication. And I think some of this AI tooling
AI
is
is
going to be
helping
great because you go there, go, there's my plan. Can you summarize it?
somebody.
Right. Can you summarize key dependencies on my plan? I'd love to see being in that plan. I use an MSP project and go drop it into something and say, right, explain why this takes this long. What are the key drivers? And it'd be great to have that kind of thing.
I guess it's still a little long way to AI have an impact in the project management. It's on the way, but we haven't hit the pinnacle yet. I mean, it's still ongoing. For example, there are some still a lot of things which I guess AI can do, but they are not available for us. For example, like you said in the beginning, can AI predict the risk? I don't know if AI can do because how will AI understand my context of my project?
Yeah.
How, I mean, it needs a lot of work. Like AI needs to fine tune these models based on my context of work. Who is gonna fine tune these models? Can a PM gonna do fine tune these models for the predicting the risk? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's the data lake that needs to be there in order for them to be able to do that. And I think that I've seen some of the things that I know that Microsoft have been doing with the email and Teams and things like that, and being able to look at cross things. So if you have a team of people working on your project and you can identify that it's that project that you're dealing with, there are probably things you can do. But then looking back on historic ones, but I have seen that there's a Tom I was going to get on the show actually is Tom's Planner, which is a an online Gantt chart tool. It's more than that. It must be 12, 18 months ago where he put in a methodology to be able to create a project plan using AI and just go, right, put some prompt in, this is what I want, and it builds a plan. Now, a lot of that is because of what you said. We've got that 60%, 70%, which is going to be the same in all projects. But then when you start bringing in those other factors that affect it, so whether it's an Oracle project, an SAP project, or implementing an Azure or AWS, there'll be some other knowledge bases to pull out of those as well. You can see the potential, can't you, on those sort of things?
There's a lot of potential AI can do, but I guess AI will make overall project management more efficient. It
Mhm.
will take give back us a lot of time. Currently, if something's taking 2 hours for me, maybe we can do it in 15 minutes or 20 minutes. So
Yeah. And we can look strategic then from there on coming.
yeah, the
That's the
project
thing that we,
managers need to strategically move, keep moving, keep learning, keep evolving so that your job is safe.
yeah, we need to think about our role differently, don't we? And I'm conscious of it. I'll sit there and I'll get delve deep into a plan or delve deep into a finance spreadsheet and be right in those details. But in theory, we should be able to lift ourselves up out of those a lot more. But then you've got to make sure that we don't fill it with busy work. We fill it with the other work, and what we don't have is from an industry point of view, just think, oh, that means they can do one more project rather than do the one project that they're doing better and more effectively. We can be more efficient, but it's about freeing that time for that effective strategy.
Right. I agree. Also, the AI can't make a decision making. Maybe
Yeah,
AI has its own problem. I mean, like hallucination is a one famous problem AI has. Other problem AI is that it lacks the human empathy.
yeah,
I mean, that's the biggest thing for a management, like to have some human empathy. If someone is falling behind their project, how can you support that person? That human empathy maybe not there in the software in the robots, but somewhere you need a project manager in the strategic ways.
yeah. Again, you get that kind of thing. If the data is giving you information going, and I've seen it before, where looking at also it's the sort of the tone of people's writing, the tone of people's emails, the tone of people's Teams chats and things like that, and being
Yeah,
able to highlight where there is one of your team that might be struggling, that they need help. But then there's lots of HR sort of concerns around that sort of thing on how it would get used rather than abused rather than used. Then, isn't it? Because I can see again sort of thing where you can get if everyone, but then you don't see all the non-verbal communication and things like that, which is just as important to pick up on when you're talking to people and being closer together.
agree.
Just thinking, because we've gone down. I knew we'd go down. I told you we'd go down rabbit holes, didn't I? Yeah, we went down the AI rabbit hole there. Let's bring it back to kind of where we were talking about. But it's something that you talked to me or pinged a message to me about the use of how someone can ace their project management, program management career. And you sent me a link actually to ace the FAANG, which I thought, what's that? And then I worked it out, which is the Facebook, Apple, Amazon, sorry, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. I've never heard that phrase before, so it's a new one. So I learned something new today. So ace the FAANG program manager interview for beginners lesson that you've got. And I think this is a course that you've done, I assume, and created.
Yeah, I did this course many years before, while because I been through journey, I understand the pain, and then at that time I realized if such course exists, it would save my lot of time and I can be more successful sooner because currently I spend a lot of time by through experience, by searching here and there on internet, talking with friends. So basically this course covers what are the interview structure for these famous big tech companies, like you call it FANG, I call it FANG. So,
Yeah,
so what are the program manager interview structure for these companies? What do you need to study? For example, the behavioral questions we usually ask. Tell me about a time when you had this. Tell me about a time when you failed in a project, something similar, or how does each company differ in their interview structure? Some companies go way more technical versus some are staying about their leadership principles. So the interview structure is pretty different for each of the companies. So I covered how does the interview structure differ. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting course. It's a big course. I spent around few months to write this course to put all the knowledge what I had, what I learned few years. I wrote this in couple 3 4 years, 3 years back. This course. Yeah,
All right. Yeah, because I've heard about the different approaches there, and I think there's what I looked at, I think where did I see? Yeah, you talk about the star technique, which I've heard about before,
yeah.
which is it's quite an interview, uh, um, quite an interview interesting way to be able to put something forward, but it's quite a good way for structuring the storytelling we were talking about earlier, isn't it? And even if it's not for an interview, if you're trying to put across something, I've heard something similar. I can't remember what it was, but for putting together a presentation or trying to get a decision out of it, and I think there's another bit at the end of it with that. But again, it's kind of just you want to just talk around that a little bit around how you've seen that and how you've used that, how people might use that.
I guess storytelling is an important aspect if you want to grow in your career. It's an art, and everyone should learn the storytelling in sooner in their career to grow in their career. We had our CEO in my previous company. He was a very good orator. He was very good storyteller. If there is any problem, he could relate to something and tell in a very beautiful way and make it up a good story. A lot of startup founders are a good storytellers because that's how they came up with their startup idea and sell their idea from the story. Storytelling has been a selling point for a lot of people. That's how they sell their ideas to investors in the
Yeah,
form of story. But star is the one of the ways I call it situation, task, action, result. So basically, if someone asks you a question, tell me about a time you failed in a project, for example. You start with the situation when you failed, then you say the task, what you were doing, in which you got failed, then the actions you took which led you to fail, and the result, what did you learn from it? So that's how we call it star framework. Star framework is one of the way to tell your story, and storytelling is a great skill set. Overall, I guess everyone should learn about it. If you nail in storytelling, the star is a great work for you.
yeah, it's a good. It's because it gives it the structure, doesn't it? That, like you say, you can if you step back and go, right, okay, I want to communicate this, and just in your even if you're prepping for something or if you're just giving a quick briefing to your manager about why your project status is in the project state that it's in, being able to say, well, the situation is right, we've got this going on, right, we've got the task. You can actually say what the detail is there, and then get into there and go, yeah, what we're doing is this, and this, and we've got this result, or at the moment we're waiting for this result, or we've got these options. You know what I mean? You can use that same in those kind of communications because it's quite often I'll be sitting, and I've done a number of different roles in my time, from leading small projects to leading large programs to running portfolios of utterly unconnected projects, but other than technology and things like that. And quite often I'll be in a situation where you'll ask someone, or I'll be sat next to someone who's been asked to explain the situation of why their project or what the current status is. And there is such because you know that project so well, there's such a tendency to one, make assumptions on what people know already, two, dive down into some really deep detail that isn't actually answering the question that's being asked. And the other thing is acronym heaven, where you just blind people with science around all the different jargon that you have in your project, and forget the fact that one layer, two layer, maybe three layers up, someone's going to read the same report and have no clue what an EPDF7, and you've referenced that as if it's something someone should know. And I think that's a fantastic thing to think about as a PM, is how you've got to kind of think two or three levels above your communication zone to make sure that it's readable or that it's understandable.
Also, it gives you a better structure to put your things out. Sometimes we know a lot in our head, and
Yeah.
the words don't come in that structured way. When we say in this way, it's very structured and easy for others to understand. Again, it's mapping back to our communication style. Like we discussed this 20 minutes back, the communication. It's all about the
Yeah.
communication. This is also style of communication. The style of communication needs to be very structured in a way that's easy for your stakeholders, your other person to understand, especially in the interviews. In the interviews, other person doesn't have a time or need to. You don't want your interview to brainstorm on what you are saying. You want to present your cake. Yeah, this is a vanilla cake I'm serving you. Tell me, how's it? You want your
Yeah.
interview to be like that. You don't want, hey, these are the ingredients we use. Can you tell me if the cake will become, how the cake will be get tasted? Interview will say, hey, I don't have a time to think about all that. Give me a cake in the plate. I will taste it. I will say it's delicious.
You like your puddings, don't you? I can tell.
Say again.
You like your puddings, don't you?
I like the puddings. I have a sweet tooth.
So for your analogy, but again, it works, doesn't it? Those analogies you can, and I'd say the way you're saying that you don't need to know the ingredients of what made it up. What boiling it down and summarize, saying less is somewhere more powerful. And it goes to that old adage. Sometimes you sit there and go, well, if I had more time, I'd write you a shorter letter. But taking more time to answer something, even using these, and it's a tool that can be used for others. And if you think about, and again, I sort of, if you're talking to an exec, if you're talking to one of your program managers or program directors to give them or a key stakeholder, customer stakeholder in a program board to summarize what's going on there, thinking about actually do this, do that, take that second to say when they say, well, how's that going? And if it's a question you weren't expecting, sit back and go, okay, situation, right? The situation's this. Let that sink in. Wait, right. Task. So task. Let that sink in with them. Action. Let that sink in with them. And then result or request or whatever you end up doing. And actually, what that does, it makes you take time because you're using that structure in your head potentially to just slow yourself down. And I know that I think quite often with the sort of quite a lot of the bigger when you're prepping for interviews, there might be stuff that you'll think, well, actually, there's certain things I know that I'm going to get. They say, what's your best project? What's your biggest project? What's your worst project? Having those prepared is great, but using those in your career once you've got those roles and using that structure can help you on the fly put more structure to it. It's better structure with structure. I've said structure so many times there.
Also, yeah. Also, it's important to know which projects you're going to talk about, like you said, right? You may have done 10 projects, and
Yeah,
at the time of run time of an interview or when telling us as anyone, your manager, you may forget which project you want to talk about. So it's always to keep a short things on which project you're going to talk about. Pick any two or three projects so that you don't get confused between the mind. Oh no, I could pick this. Oh no, I should pick this because at the time of runtime, the human minds get confused easily, especially in the pressurized environments.
yeah, that's true. Because I suppose that it all depends on the kind of how long your career's been and on different things and how much you've got on your CV. And nowadays, how much you've got on LinkedIn, isn't it? Because in some cases, the interviewer would have a lot of information about lots of projects that you may have run on your CV, or it might be a very small number and you've got control about the ones you talk about. But then if you've got a whole load of information on LinkedIn about the different projects and different technologies you've used, again, there's a chance they'll turn around and go, well, tell me about when you've used, I don't know, Nutanix. Yeah, when were you involved with Nutanix? And it's kind of, oh, that's not the one I've prepped for. So
Yeah.
you've got to be with people out there. They've got to be ready to know their projects and understand to be able to answer their questions when you move through those careers. And it's internal conversations are
Sometimes,
the same as well, aren't
yeah, because sometimes we make up the things on our own runtime and we get trapped in them. When other person asks a follow-up question and put up a trap for us and we get struck. No, I don't know.
they? Yeah, and sometimes you just got to sit with those sort of things. You've got to sit back and go, hang on a minute, let me think. What's the question they're really asking me? And again, I think I've been in project boards and project meetings, and I've been on some training which did some where we've done some role playing, and purposely the meeting that you think you're going into with that role playing on that training is not the meeting you're going into, because the demonstration is that as a PM, you'll go in to see the program director, you'll go in to see one of the key stakeholders or key customers, and what you think is their priority and what you think you're going in there and what you want from them maybe is not their priority and is not what's important to them. And you've got to be ready as a PM, and you've got to be ready in those interviewing situations to be able to go, hang on, that's not what I thought was going to happen here. And not fluster, deal with it, and to be able to step back and go, actually, I've seen it before now. You have to give up your own agenda sometimes
I
and come
agree.
back later. You give up your own agenda and go, right, okay, I'm not going to do that. Where I have been on situations where I've seen people where they're going, well, this is the agenda, and they won't answer the question the other person wants or deal with that. I want to talk about this, and you've got to be flexible with your stakeholders, because at the end of the day, and the empathy you talked about, they're the ones who either are providing you with the money or have a really valid something you think is not a problem at the moment, but it's very important to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be talking about it.
Right. Empathy and flexibility are very good pillars when you present your stuff. I
Yeah,
guess that's how the decision making. So I have seen some people who are not flexible at all, and they suffer a lot.
yeah, yeah. The flexibility is. I can be too flexible at times. I let things go a little bit, and it catches me out. But I think I've seen it at the other end where you're too rigid, and it's different. I think you get it wrong all the time anyway. You're going to get it wrong because there's not a hard and fast rule on how flexible to be or how rigid to be. And you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't is a quote I've said to a lot of people before now, is where you can say you've got a project schedule you created and you're telling the customer or your stakeholder you're going to get it a month later than you wanted it.
I agree.
What do? Do you tell them on day one when you've planned it that you don't think you can do it, but you'll try and bring it in, and they're not going to be happy and they're going to be annoyed and they're going to have a go at you? Or do you just say, well, if everything goes perfect, we can just about do it, knowing that this normally goes wrong, that normally goes wrong, that normally goes wrong, but you've put it on a slide where saying, here's the risks and assumptions that things don't go wrong that never get read once it's gone one layer up in an organization. And then at the end, you have the fight and argument, say, well, we need another month to do it. And both ways, you're not a popular person. Both ways, it's hard work. And sometimes I think people can be guilty of doing the second one because it delays that argument to later. But then other people are just going, nope, we can't do it, and won't add any flexibility. And I've been in situations where I've had a project to deliver, and I've said, I can't guarantee that date for you.
Yeah.
I definitely can't guarantee that date, but I can guarantee that date. And we can try and bring that in, and we'll do this, this, and this to try and bring that in. And you kind of sail that middle ground, which is it's difficult to do sometimes because you've got to annoy someone and then offer an option of doing something different. But sometimes works.
No, I agree
I
overall.
just looking, we've been chatting for nearly good 50 minutes now, and I'm just thinking about from your perspective and your career, or key things that project managers looking, like we talked about at the start, but if you were saying 2 or 3 things that you would see as being a new project manager, say, coming into this career and looking to get into it for the first time, or they've just started a project and they've just realized they are a project manager and now they want to go into a career, what advice would you give them for their next move or for their next step in the project management role?
I guess the first thing, like we discussed, know the fundamentals of a project management. That's the basics I would expect everyone to know first, like a basics of a project management. Then second is know your shit, I call it. Basically know yourself, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what's your background, know your resume well, in other
Yeah,
words. Again, then relate your project management story basics to your background. I guess that's a pretty much basics I would expect. I'm not expecting anyone to know AI as a newcomer in the field. Even everyone is learning these days AI in project management. No one is an expert here in this market. We all are learning together. So I
Yeah,
don't expect a new person to be expert here, but I would expect that person knows the fundamentals on their hands, like how to run a project successfully. That's a fundamental I would need from a person. How can you run a project? How can you kick off a project? What are the things you need to run a project? Like a basics. If I assign a like a template or checklist, at least that person can run it
yeah,
smoothly and know themselves well. It's a really required to crack any type of interview. If you don't know your resume well, then means you are fluffing or bluffing
yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah, that's really good advice there. And then I'm kind of looking, when people are looking to move roles and some of the more experienced PM, what do you see as being the sort of the things that block people from getting roles, things that block them from stepping into those new roles when they want to take that step to their next career change?
Uh, can you repeat your question? I missed.
No worries. It's where you've got people who are more experienced, been around for a while, looking to go into a new role, but they're not quite sure how to do it and how to prep themselves. What sort of things would you suggest on those sort of things with moving that career forward from where you are?
I guess some of the certifications like PMP will help here
Yeah.
because you can explore if that's your cup of tea or not, and you can always explore some part of it and see if you like it, and always try internal in your team. If you are a software developer, you want to try project management, be a project manager for your own project
Mm.
and see if you like it or not. Be a project manager for your team, for your project, and see how can you run it. Do you like this work? Do you enjoy doing this work? Do you want to do it for scale? That's one of the thing I say.
Yeah,
Start
that was
small.
really cool.
Start
Yeah.
small. Get yourself feedback. Do you enjoy it? If yes, you enjoy it, then you can always scale up your portfolio.
Brilliant. So before we start wrapping up, was there anything that you wanted to mention that I haven't asked you about and thought you'd like to discuss or chat about on this interview?
No, I guess I'm a strong believer overall of a willpower. If you have a willpower, you want to do something, everyone can do everything. You just
Yeah.
need a strong determination, hard work, and a grit and a passion to achieve that thing.
Yeah, brilliant. Superb. So if people wanted to find out more about you, find out more about the course that you'd created there, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
I guess LinkedIn is a perfect way. I'm pretty active there. Follow me or connect with me, LinkedIn. Yeah,
And with the course, I'll put a link in to the course into the website
yeah.
onto the show notes, and that'll be there. In the meantime, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been really interesting conversation trying to understand the project management career is that, as you say, there are so many different ways in and out and around it. Coming into it, you can sit there thinking, well, that person did it that way, that person did it that way. There's all these different roles and different titles that are there, and it's quite a minefield to be able to try and work out what you might want to do within it. But I suppose it is the fact you can. I like as you said the ice cream analogy works really well for me. Is it kind of yeah. Have a look at that. What's your favorite ice cream, and decide to go your project management ice cream of choice that way.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good way of thinking about it.
After all,
But thank you very much for
thank
coming
you.
on the show, and you have a fantastic rest of your day. Thanks,
Thank
Mark.
you for having me. Thank you. Good night. Bye bye.
So I have a number of sponsors, affiliate links in the way that it's set up that have kindly allowed me to share their services, really. The first one is Mike Clayton, and Mike runs online PM courses, and it is a great resource for getting those fundamentals of project management trained, reasonably priced, and Mike presents it in an accessible and clear manner. You can check out some of his videos on his YouTube channel and kind of give you a view of where they are. But the code for that, if you go to nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, all one word, lowercase, that'll redirect you to it. There's very different levels that you can buy. You can buy individual courses, you can buy pathways as well, if you like. And I get a kickback off those. Mike kindly shares me that. So if you do jump on and use it, I hope you find it really useful. I think he has money back guarantees and things like that as well. So there's very limited risk on that. So jump on that, and that again, it's nigelcreaser.com/online PM courses, and enjoy.
Well, it's goodbye from me, Nigel Creaser, and it's goodbye from him, the Sunday Lunch PM. Goodbye.